All right, so let me start by introducing our candidates. We'll begin with the candidate closest to me, your left to right. We have the candidate for the Board of Selectmen, Bob Carlton.
Thank you.
The Republican candidate for First Selectman, Asa Palmer. The candidate appearing on both the Independent Party and the Democratic Party lines for First Selectman, Mike Urgo. And also a candidate for Selectman, petitioning candidate, Nika Kincaid. We're going to start with the candidates introducing themselves, having opening statements, and then we're going to question. All this was worked out beforehand with the discussion of the rules and a flip of the coin. So with that, we'll begin our opening statements. The candidates have up to 2 minutes, and we begin with Mike Urgo.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks to the Women's League of Voters for helping us facilitate this event, and as well as Amy Kennedy and the Wheeler Library for having us here. So my name is Mike Urgo. I'm not from North Stonington. I come from a faraway land called Ashaway, Rhode Island. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's just over the border. I lived there till graduating high school, then moved to Westerly, Rhode Island. I worked full-time while attending college and obtaining my associate's degree in business management and my bachelor's in communication studies. Been married to my wife for 15 years, Jen, and have 2 children, Michael and Abby, both who attend North Stonington schools. And I own Farmers Insurance here in North Stonington. My experience is extensive. I've owned a retail store, consulting business, worked in the financial sector for 15 years. I spend a lot of time volunteering. It's my hobby, I guess you'd say. I've served as the president. I currently am the outgoing president of the YMCA swim team. 20-year volunteer for the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life, secretary of the Mystic Rotary Club, and Sunday school teacher. My town experience includes Board of Finance in the past, liaison to the Board of Education. I was a chairman of the Ad Hoc School Building Committee, and I'm the current chairman of the School Modernization Committee. I was a co-founder of No Stove Fest, Informed Citizens of North Stonington, and the North Stonington Quarterly, all things I hope you've heard of in town now. I'm an unaffiliated candidate who has received endorsement from both the parties, as Paul said. I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican. I see positive points on both sides, which is why I chose to not affiliate. Tonight I hope to have everyone feel a little bit more hopeful, I guess, where sometimes it seems like there's a lot of negativity. I try to keep things positive. I've worked and volunteered over the last several years, and I'm running because I believe I can help us cross the finish line in North Stonington. I'm not in favor of higher taxes, just so you know, and I look forward to talking more about my experience as the night goes on.
Very good, thank you. Asa Palmer.
Thank you all for coming out. On November 7th, we're all going to get the chance to cast our vote for First Selectman, who gets to run the town the next 2 years. I hope you choose me. And tonight, I'm hoping to convince you all that it might be a very good idea. I've held a managerial role on my family's dairy farm. I've negotiated contracts. I've managed a lot of employees, some of which are here tonight, which is pretty interesting. I'm very informed on all issues pertaining to many levels of government. I'm running in response to having a lack of candidates. I felt that the people needed to have 2 choices. I've been very interested in doing this since I was 14 when I fell in love with government, and I found the opportunity to get this nomination, and I promise I'll be an opportunist for the town of North Stonington. My major concerns include tax increases and future state cuts. We finally have a budget, but I think it's very important to take into account the future of what our state holds, and not forget about the older citizens whose incomes stay the same while taxes continue to rise. I am experienced a bit in town government. When I was 21 years old, I got on the town of Wetlands. I got on the Wetlands and Waterways Commission because I wanted to at least play a minute role in developing this town economically. And I thought that being a farmer and knowing that water runs downhill made me qualified to do that. And before I start to ramble, I suppose I will yield back the balance of my time for my opening statement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, Nita Kincaid.
Yes. Thanks very much for organizing this tonight, and special thanks to such a huge group that we have. It is so wonderful to see so many people who live in town out at one of our meetings. Okay, sorry. I was thanking everybody, but I was especially thanking all of you for being here tonight. As most of you hopefully have already seen, the mailer that I sent out that arrived on the day of the storm, I believe. I won't take you through my, my whole experiences working, but I did graduate from Connecticut College in New London back in 1965, and I taught for 14 years elementary and middle school students in Weston, Connecticut, and Newburyport, Massachusetts. I think I learned a lot of what later helped me in my second career. A lot in terms of the importance of communication, the importance of really listening to people, and of course these were students, and the importance of trying lots of different approaches to make things work. In 1981, I made a significant change in career, taking an entry-level position at Fidelity Investments in Boston. During my 14 years at that world-leading financial services firm, I progressed from sales into senior roles in the company, doing everything from running 4 sites across the United States where they took all their customer phone calls and sold all their products, etc. It was a wonderful career, exhausting. Every day was not a 9-to-5 day, but it was a great learning experience again. I am running as a petitioning candidate because I have never been particularly involved in a political party in any way. I hope that you will vote for me. Talk to them.
Thank
Sorry.
you. And Mr. Carlson, 2 minutes.
Okay, my name is Bob Carlson. Some of you know me from rec basketball, some from Little League. I was at the last 2 debates. The last one I was sitting over there, and I would have bet $100 I would not be sitting over here this evening. But things change. We came to town, myself, my wife, and my son Andrew, in 2003. It didn't take long before I realized how much I loved the town of North Stonington. I've always been a doer. Through college, I was president of my fraternity. I've always been holding office in any organization I've joined. I was in town probably about 6 months before I started working with the North Stonington Little League. After about 3 years, my son was playing rec basketball, and I found myself as the rec basketball director, which I did for 8 years. In 2008, I asked Mr. Mullane if he would appoint me to the ad hoc school building committee. I wanted to do something more on a political side. He did, and I was elected its first chair in 2008. I was on that board through 2012. 2013, I ran for the Board of Education, and I became the vice chair at our second meeting. And then our chair became ill, and I became the full chair right after that. So I've been the chair of the Board of Ed now for the last 3+ years. And it was a kind of a learn on the job, which it seems like I'll be doing again. Being the chair of the Board of Ed, I was pretty much focused on the school district and our students and our parents, our teachers. And now I realize that coming over to this side, it's going to be a much bigger challenge. I know my learning curve is large. I've been trying to shrink it over the last few weeks. But I look forward to the challenge. I was at this graduation, and I saw Sean Murphy, and I asked him if was it true all 3 selectmen weren't coming back. He said yes, and on that day I decided that I wanted to run for selectman. It's not going to be an easy job, but it's a job for level-headed thinkers, and I think that I am one, and done.
Okay, now we get to the questions. The candidates will get 1 minute to respond to the questions. I got a lot of questions. from people and try to combine some of them so we can get to as many of the topics as possible. In addition to the minute, after everyone has a chance to respond for up to a minute, there'll be room for 30-second rebuttals, and we could toss it around a little. But like I said, we'll try to get as many questions as I can. According to the coin flip, we begin the first question. It begins with Mr. Urgo. I've had a lot of questions submitted about what the candidate's approach would be if elected to potential development on Route 2, and particularly their opinions of the proposed resort commercial district that would be built along Route 2 near the Ledyard border. And Mr. Urgo, you get to start.
So that's a great question. It comes up a lot as I'm talking to people. The plan of conservation and development, which I have right here, is what guides me as to what I'm looking to do for the town. This was crafted in 2013. I was a part of that group that helped to put this together. I am completely in favor of expansion, the right kind of expansion in Route 2, and also, even though not part of the plan of conservation and development, the west end of Route 2, where the casino is, or towards the casino, also makes sense to me as a location where we could have some development as well. As far as the second part of the question, with like gaming and stuff, I know it was before my time. The Six Flags debate was here, and so I'm really not interested in revisiting things that already happened and had a huge debate in town. But I do think there are businesses that definitely make sense for that section of the west side of Route 2, and I completely favor the right kind of expansion and would work very hard. I'd like to be able to talk more about how I can help the town facilitate some of that.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer, what would be your approach to potential development on Route 2, in particular the proposed resort commercial district?
Well, I think the reason why that question probably came up is because people are worried about their taxes going up, and so they want more development going on in town. And planning and zoning has come a long way in making North Stonington easier to facilitate business growth. And since 1990, the demographics of this town have changed a little bit, and it's because the taxes have sort of gone up. And the way that we've developed our economy in the past was by building houses. That's how we kept the mill rate from going up. In 2006, 33 houses were built, but then after the crash of 08 in 2009, one house got built. Since then, in 2013, there was 6 houses being built, so the same now. We don't have the same increase, and I think that's because houses are being sold at a higher rate than they used to be. Because so when there's 10 houses for sale, nobody's gonna go and build a house when there's 10 houses for sale. So we need to, all right, first debate, sorry.
That's okay. And there could be potential for rebuttal. Mrs. Kincaid.
I think that that's a very fair question that people in the audience are asking. I have been to all of the meetings that Planning and Zoning had to discuss the new regulations that they had a draft of. For those of you who are concerned that some of the items were very much like the Six Flags kind of a question, I think that that has been dispersed in terms of it will not be that kind of a development that would go at the west end of Route 2. However, and for those who are not familiar with the area, there is not that much viable property there. The biggest piece of property that is looking for development is owned by the Mashantucket Pequot Indians, but they would be developing it under our regulations because it is not on the it's not on the reservation at all. So I think I can assure you that the regulations are going to be tampered down and not be noisy, disruptive, and offensive to the people who already live in the area.
Mr. Carlson?
I agree. Using the plan of conservation development should be our guide. I am for almost any development in the town that can add to the grand list, but at the same time not taking away from the beauty and the way our town is today. We love this town for a reason. Someone said at a meeting the other night, we're trying to become the next Wesley. It couldn't be any farther from the truth. We're not trying to become anybody. We're just trying to become a better North Stonington. if there is such a thing. So my feeling is that if we can develop and add to the grand list, we know that taxes typically don't go down, and we have to do something other than residential taxes, which now is what makes up our grand list. So I am in favor of economic development in that area. I've been to planning and zoning. I think Juliet's doing a wonderful job. There's been some zoning changes, and I commend the Planning and Zoning Board and Juliet for the job they do. Thank you.
Just to follow up on that question during rebuttal in 30 seconds on this phase, Mr. Palmer, you were pointing out what you think motivates the potential development, trying to broaden the tax base, but I don't know if you got to whether or not you support that or not. So if you could take the opportunity to kind of clarify, if you're supportive of it.
Absolutely. There's 35,179 acres in North Stonington. 48% of it is vacant, and there's enough commercial land open that is developable to account for 30 to 40 years of economic development in this town. You can take it away, Mike. A little nervous.
Do you have anything further on that?
So I would say that over this past year, just the calendar year, there's actually been 14 units, residential units that have been permitted and are happening. And actually 104 permits have been approved this year. Things are happening, and they're happening because of the hard work that's gone over the last couple of years. And I mean, I'm proud to have been a little bit of a part of it, very small part. But Juliet's done a great job with the other boards and commissions. And I also would say that we need to make moves on this because the other towns will. I mean, just over the border in Ledyard, I'm sure they have land too. You know, we need to be first to the table to be able to make some of this stuff happen here in North Stonington so we can see the tax benefits so that we can actually try to mitigate that impact to the people who can't afford it.
Thank you. All right, let's get to another question. And this time we begin with Mr. Palmer. Your campaign signs read, "Had enough, I have." So our audience wants to know, what have you had enough of? And do the other candidates share the sentiment that they've had enough as well? Mr. Palmer?
Well, I've had enough of the taxes going up and watching people getting taxed out of their homes, and I've had enough of not really taking fast enough action to account for the impending state cuts that I think are going to happen. This goes into that last question a little bit. Yes, Mike, we do need to act before other towns do. But the thing is, right now we have to account for the real estate market because property tax is the main revenue source for towns. And new construction is justified when markets are up, but when markets go down, people are gonna buy vacant buildings in other towns before they build new ones here. We have until the markets of real estate go down to build in this town. Otherwise, we're really gonna be in a pickle here with this new school project and firehouse project.
Mr. Ergo, do you share the sentiment that perhaps you've had enough that your opponent is expressing?
I could never have enough. I've maybe had enough of campaigning, I guess, but I haven't had enough. I think a lot of great things are happening in North Stonington. If I feel like I've paid close attention, I've been involved in a lot of the things happening, and I think North Stonington's doing a very good job of trying to control our situation. I think it's frustrating what's happened up in Hartford. I do speak with Diana Urban. I've spoken with her along the way and tried to keep in good communication, have an understanding of what's going on. And Heather Summers as well, I've been in contact with. I feel like we are doing a good job here. I'm running for first selectman of North Stonington, not first selectman of Hartford. I want to try to control what we can here, do a great job for the citizens of this town, and just continue the good work that's been going on. Progress is being made. I think I'm the guy that can kind of help continue to get us across the finish line there.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson, any thoughts?
When I first saw the sign, I knew what it meant, so I didn't misconstrue it. I know that the thought was that as a small town in Connecticut, we do what's fiscally responsible. We do what we need to do to make our town run, and it seems like that we're in a position where we have to give back to the state capital in Hartford in this case, to support some of the bigger cities that don't do as quite a good job fiscally as we do. So it gets somewhat frustrating after a while when you feel like you're doing the right thing here and you find out that we're not getting the support from the state. So have I had enough? I've kind of think we need to become more self-sufficient, because I think we've all had a little bit too much of the way that we're depending on Hartford to support us, and I think we need to be more self-sufficient and support ourselves. Thank you.
And Mrs. Kincaid.
I think that the town, and I concur with what Mr. Urgo said, that the town has done amazingly well in the last couple of years in terms of the growth, even in businesses. There was an article not too long ago in the New London Day about the fact that in 2014, 2015, and 2016, we were at the top of the Connecticut list in terms of our development. I think we're on the right path, and we need to stick to it and work hard at it and have the whole group working together, meaning all of the people who are elected, and we have many who may be in this room, as well as the good people that work in town hall and the committees. We all have to work together in order to do the right thing for our town. And the plan of economic and development and the action plan associated with it, and having Juliet Hodge back in town hall, we're going to get somewhere.
Thank you. Just follow up, Mr. Palmer. Some might see some irony in the sign, in that the Republican candidates, the Republicans have been in control of North Stonington for a pretty long time. So if you're telling the voters they've had enough, when they consider going in some other direction, could you sort of address that, what could be seen as a contradiction? Kind of
I don't care what party's in charge. I just think people care about their tax bill mostly. And, I think if I had more time to answer these questions, I could answer them in a more clear, concise manner. But, people tell me don't sound negative during this whole debate, but I think it's kind of hard not to sound a little bit negative, because I think we're in a negative situation. I think that article in the Day was misleading, saying that we're at the top of the growth in the state, because we are in a state where it is shrinking, and we have one of the smallest grand lists in the state, so it's not hard to grow 1.5% when you have the smallest grand list in the state.
Thank you. Mr. Urgo, anything else?
No.
All right. Anyone else in the rebuttal? Okay. Start with this line of question with Mr. Urgo. Some audience members want to know if our candidates can pledge to hold the line on taxes, and if they won't take that pledge, can they give any assurance to what limit they might place during that term on further tax increases? And we'll start that taxing question with you, Mr. Urgo.
Absolutely. So I started off in my opening statement that I'm not in favor of higher taxes. I'm not. I live here too. I don't want to pay more taxes. We have some challenges on the horizon here. We've been doing a lot of great things to position us for great things in North Stonington, but they may not be happening quite fast enough. We've got some projects going on that we know are going to cost money. Now, we did a good job of securing very low funds, getting state reimbursement on one of the projects, working within our budgets there. So I feel like it would be a challenge for me to, especially now, we just got the state budget. I do know that they have a 2-year budget from the state that has been put forth. However, we are reliant on state funding. $3 million or so of our budget comes from the state. So I can't make that commitment, but anyone who knows me knows how frugal I am. And certainly if there's anyone up here that's going to scrutinize that budget and work closely with the Board of Finance, I will be doing that. I plan to have workshops with the Board of Finance and work very closely to keep our taxes as low as possible.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer, a pledge or at least some guide people might consider where you would hold the line on taxes?
Yeah, well, the school project is going to raise taxes quite a bit. Right now, we are saving, this is the first year, we are saving $500,000 to pay for the school project, which means that when the school project is completed, since it's a construction loan, that is when we start paying it off. After the school project is completed, we will have saved enough money to pay for about 1 year of the school project. This means that we have to pay $1.5 million a year approximately, because we're paying $22 million over 20 years, but that does not account for interest. So you have to account for a $3 million increase roughly. $1 million, I think we can take $1 million off of that burden by getting students from out of district to come to our school, since it's going to be big enough, become a school of choice. If you got 10 students a year and you had them in 4 grades, that would account for $500,000 roughly of extra revenue. And I have some spending cuts in place that I think could take care of another one of those mill increases. I think I could cut that school project increase in taxes in half.
Mrs. Kincaid.
I think that it really is necessary for us to spend a lot of time when the new board gets in place to recognize the fact that Connecticut is not going to be there for us very much longer. And I think it's going to force us to change some things in how we do things. I think some of the ideas which have already been mentioned here about our schools of distinction being able to draw students in, I think that's a wonderful idea. I think there are efficiencies that we can still find within the town government, et cetera. But I think it would be impossible at this point, and in terms of how much we've been involved, although all of us have been going to the recent Board of Finance meetings, to tell you that we could hold the line.
Mr. Carlson.
Okay. So,
Sorry.
Do you bet, Mrs. Kincaid? Because unfortunately, we don't have a public address system, so if the candidate could
Sorry.
do the best.
so the only,
Right. Oh, did you want me to repeat it? No.
No, that wouldn't be fair, but maybe going forward,
I will stand up and speak. That might be
if it
better.
helps.
I apologize, folks. I'm sorry.
okay, so the pledge I'll make to you tonight is I'll try always to think before I speak and never say anything that I don't know to be true. So I can't tell you that I will never raise taxes, but I will promise you I'll do everything in my power to try to offset taxes. As Asa and Nita mentioned, something I started 3 years ago was talking about bringing students from other towns into our schools as a chairman of the Board of Ed. Now that we have a school building project, that is my plan. I think Asa hit on some of the numbers. If we can get 10 students a year from neighboring towns, and our tuition is around $12,500, that comes up to about $500,000 a year. $500,000 a year will go a long way into help paying for our school building project. And that's the equivalent of building about 80 houses. So if we can do that, it's a win-win for the school. It's a win for the students coming in. Our school being built can easily hold 20% more students. So I think that's one of the first things, that first initiative that I'm going to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. So I didn't hear a pledge to hold the line on taxes, and people give various reasons while that would be difficult. I just want to make sure that that is where the candidates stand, and can they elaborate any further, as far as if they can't pledge not to raise taxes, do they have any, target in mind or goal that they won't raise the taxes above, any sort of game plan in that event? And I just throw that out there if anyone wants to elaborate on the answer they gave to that question.
With increased efficiencies, getting students from out of district to come to our new school, and adding revenue from businesses that I plan on driving in here, I think that we could keep the tax increase in the short term to 1.5 mils potentially, and that doesn't account for state aid cuts though. It's going to be, we're in for a rough one in the next 4 to 6 years.
I mean,
I just want to repeat what I said before that you couldn't hear. Until we get into office and really are working with the numbers directly, it would be very hard for us to promise anything. But I think any of the group that's sitting up here understand the concern of the people in town about their taxes, and we will keep you very informed about what is happening.
Anybody else on that question of taxes?
It's been, I think we've been pretty clear up here. We're reliant on state funding, and it would be good, and that's something that I would like to work on through some of the initiatives I'm hoping to implement as first selectman to wean us off of that, because it will not be long before that well starts to dry up. Now, I don't think it's going to happen in the year or 2 or 3, but I think over the next 10 years, based on things I've heard, we're going to have to start looking at not being so reliant there. So I look forward to implementing some strategies.
All right, thank you. So we'll begin another round of questions, and we begin with Mr. Palmer on this one. And this particular question is more geared towards the first selectman, but certainly if the selectman candidates want to comment, they can. I remember a longtime first selectman, Nick Mullane, telling me that in a small town like North Stonington with limited staff, that the job of first selectman is full-time and then some. So given the other demands you face, are you as first selectman candidates confident that you can devote the necessary time to the job? And the first crack at that is Mr. Palmer.
If I'm elected, I have an individual lined up from upstate New York with a college degree that's going to take over my role on the farm, and I will step away and be your first full-time first selectman.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, I own Farmers Insurance. We just opened in May. So, I didn't plan on running for first selectman, but when an article ran in the day that said there was no one willing to step up, and with the amount of time I've given to the town, I couldn't see no one stepping up to run for first selectman. So I recognize that my business will not grow as quickly as I had hoped if I take on this role. I have already hired a couple of people who are working hard to make sure our customers are well taken care of. And, my commitment is to the town. I wouldn't be running for this position if I wasn't fully committed. I have a good relationship with folks in town hall, work closely and have on the different boards and commissions I earlier mentioned that I've been on, and would look forward to being a public servant and doing the best I can for the town of North Stonington.
Would our selectman candidates want to comment what they heard, Mr. Carlson?
Well, I'll just say that being the chairman of the Board of Ed is no piece of cake, believe me. Being about a 60 or 70 hour a week job I have now, which pays for my youngest son to get through college, I realize that there's going to be a commitment by the selectmen, not the same commitment as the first selectman, but I can't imagine not being there when needed. I never miss a meeting. I will be there when at any event that I need to be at, and I will promise you I'll make the time necessary to do my job fully and efficiently.
I am in the position of being retired. My husband, who's sitting in the front row, will tell you that that doesn't mean that I'm not working every single day and at the computer doing things for the town or for some of the volunteer organizations. If I'm, I will be elected because of the way the ballot is. But when I am working in town hall with the other two people, I will give full days whenever they are necessary.
All right, thank you. Next question begins with Mr. Ergo. How important a factor should age and experience be in assessing the ability of a candidate to serve on the Board of Selectmen?
Well, I actually believe that if you have the talent at any age, you can do the job. And I'm not going to disagree with that. I've spoken with Asa throughout the process, and I respect him very much. I will say that I think my experience helps me an awful lot. We're losing all of our selectmen. This is going to be a brand new board. To have someone like me who has served on the Board of Finance, has been the chairman of the largest project that we've ever had in the town, that has been behind as a co-founder of a number of different events that positively influence the town, that's well connected within the community, that has experience with contracts and budgets and negotiations, who sat on the negotiations committee for teacher contracts. I don't think you can underestimate that experience when we're talking about the fact that we have a whole new board of very talented, Nita and Bob, both very talented people, but I believe my experience will help the town tremendously, and that's it.
Asa, how important should age and experience be in judging the qualities of a candidate for selectman?
I don't think we're in the era of age and experience. I think we're in an age of knowledge and information. And I have a lot more experience than a lot of people might think. I've held a managerial role in my family's farm, and I qualify for a $400,000 loan from Farm Credit. They take me very seriously. I'm not a joke. When I was at school, I created a fundraiser that is the largest fundraiser the school's ever had for the agricultural club. And all the numbers that the Board of Finance gets, I'm very well in tune to, and it's what's made me determine my choices on my opinions on the building projects we have going on in town, and created a vision for what I think the state of Connecticut has to hold for us in our future. I've never been on a debate stage, but I ask anybody who might question my intelligence after this to please talk to me outside. Thanks for laughing. Jesus, I needed some relief.
From the opposite end of the age spectrum, at age 74, I would say that experience makes a huge difference. The more experience, the better. And the more experience doesn't mean that you're not in tune with today's needed experience on the computer, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Mr. Carlson?
I have to concur with Nita that I don't think myself or Nita are too old to be selectmen.
Thank you, Bob.
But on the other end of the spectrum, I think it depends on the candidate. I've seen more and more in this country, you see a lot of young people running for office because the numbers are getting smaller and smaller. I think just in our area we have young politicians in many of our neighboring towns. So experience is important, but I think if it depends particularly on the individual. I think you just can't pinpoint someone as being young as being non-experienced and someone being older as being more experienced. Thank you.
And Mr. Palmer, just by way of follow-up, setting age aside, the idea that perhaps in a community you serve on a couple of different commissions, kind of get to know how things work a little more before you kind of try to step into what is basically the top spot in town. If you could kind of address why you feel that should not disqualify you as a candidate for the job of first selectman.
I got on wetlands and waterways. My plan was to get on economic development, get on planning and zoning, get on finance, then maybe one day try and run for this. But I saw an opportunity to do this, and I've wanted to do it since I was 14 years old, and I'm an opportunist. I'm going to be one for the town. And right now I'm living my dream. How many people live the dream? I'm sitting on a debate stage doing this, and I've actually woke up from dreams where I would be doing this, and it's awesome.
Mr. Ergo, any further comment on what you heard?
I mean, I commend him. I mean, honestly, he stepped up when a lot of other people wouldn't. So I don't think he deserves any fault for that. I'm only speaking to my own experience, and I feel like I bring a lot of it, but that's that.
All right. We'll go to the next question. We begin with Mr. Palmer. Being an agricultural community, how do you plan on promoting and protecting the farming community?
Well, the plan of economic development, the plan of conservation development, that it says it wants to grow our town's tax base, and it wants to keep the rural people around. Well, let me tell you what, between Palmer's and Lewis Farm, we have a lot of land in this town that's cleared, that still has the rights on it, and if the taxes keep going up, you're going to crunch us, and some of that land's going to end up getting sold. It's going to be the first land that gets purchased by housing developments and stuff because it's already cleared. They aren't going to want to buy ledge and trees. If you want to keep the rural and agricultural people around, you're going to have to do something about these taxes. And besides that, I know all the farmers, and I know what they need, and I know how they could contribute to the school system. In that plan of conservation and development, it talks about having a farm to work and having having some sort of farm programs within the school, and I have a lot of ideas about how to do that, and if you're interested in them, we should talk outside. I have a lot more time to talk about that stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Ergo, protecting the farm community here in Stonington.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely crucial, you know. I don't own a farm. I have a farmer's insurance agency, so it's kind of ironic, but farming is really it's the backbone of this community. And again, I commend Ace and his family for running a fine farm here. In the economic development plan, which was from December 2012, one of the action steps was to really kind of try to get a year-round farmers market thing going. And I think that we have the farms in town. I mean, I think a lot of people would like to see North Stonington like a sustainable community, that you can really do everything here. You could buy all your food here. More people want to buy their food where they know where it's coming from now. It's a really big thing. Everyone, I think, knows that. But I think as far as, you know, what I can bring to the table, I'm very well connected in the business community, being a member of the Eastern Connecticut Chamber of Commerce, Stonington BNI, member of the Mystic Rotary. I plan to network in those groups that I'm already a part of to keep touting why North Stonington's the best, and really work closely with the farms and the farmers as best my ability to try to capitalize on that strength of this community.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
I was at a debate here 4 years ago, and there was 4 candidates sitting up there. It was a very similar question, and one of the candidates said, farms are good. And I thought I would never be able to use that in a debate. And I guess I could use that, farms are good. But what I mean by that is, I live across from a farm. It would break my heart to see that farm subdivided into a subdivision. Mm-hmm. I love the way the town is, the way the town looks. I think we have enough property that's not farmland that can be developed. I think that, as Asa mentioned, the school is already looking at doing some working with farms with some of the students on a work-study program. I wish I could talk more about farms, but as I mentioned earlier, I have a learning curve going from the school Board of Ed to here, and that's one of the things I have to learn more about. So I apologize, but that's an area I have to investigate. Next time we speak, I promise I'll know a lot more about it.
Mrs. Kincaid?
Yes, I think we should be very proud of the fact that our town still has as many multi-generational farmers as they do have, and it would be a shame to lose any of them. It also, however, should recognize that we do have some new kinds of farms in town, with a business like Terra Firma Farm. And actually, that kind of farm, we should be going out and looking for more of those kinds of people to come into North Stonington and perhaps use some of the other farmland that may be available. UConn just issued last month a report on agriculture in Connecticut. And it is coming back very strong, but it is coming back with new products, the types of things actually that Mike referred to with regards to people want to be near what they're going to eat. And they really want the new farms too. And so we should be working on that as well as retaining the existing farms. Thank you.
I'm going to give the candidates a minute on this follow-up question. You'll get a chance, Mr. Palmer. I want to go to Mr. Ergo, and then you'll get a chance. And do a minute on this. This is Mr. Ergo. Your opponent raised the point that one of the biggest things endangering farms is the high taxes. You were very supportive and worked towards the building and renovation of the schools, as opposed to the alternative some people saw, which is to go to a regional approach and not make that investment. It's going to have an impact on the taxes. Could you kind of reconcile those two things, that dealing with the high taxes, but yet you support a very expensive infrastructure project?
Yeah, so the school building project was a big deal for the town. I came in on the 10th year they had been looking at things, and Mr. Carlson was on the board beforehand. 12 people got together and looked at this from all different angles with the school building project, and they were from different backgrounds, supporters and not supporters of the school, and all came to the same conclusion. The way we're doing the school building project is the way that makes the most sense. Then the Board of Education had a chance to take a look at that, and they voted unanimously, just like the School Modernization Board did, to move that forward. followed by the Board of Selectmen, 3 board members, and then followed by the Board of Finance passing it. Then 908 people in town voted for the school building project. I'm proud of the leadership role that I took in this process, and I feel like we made really good decisions with the infrastructure the upgrades that we're doing, and we're doing it in the most cost-effective way possible. Don't just ask me, ask any of those 20, 25, 30 people that were decision makers, or the 908 people who educated themselves and went to the polls and voted for it.
Thank you. As promised, Ms. Palmer?
Well, the state crisis was pretty predictable. There were budget deficits in 2011, 2013, 2015, and now 2017. So you knew that higher taxes had to have been coming, especially if someone were to be sitting on the Board of Finance per se. So it just, I don't see how somebody could say that they were for the school project and not for higher taxes as well. But on that other note, I'll give you some good news. The planning and zoning people are actually working on, and economic development are getting a farmer's market into town, and I think it'll end up being a student run if I'm in town, if I'm first selectman, and I'll yield back the balance of my time before I look dumb.
Do our selectmen candidates, want to comment further on the issue of taxation and fixed farms and that issue?
Well, I will only mention that I was on the we have a farm, but it's not a very active farm. And I was on the agricultural committee that was formed back in 2007 or whatever, and where we actually looked for and got as many exemptions for the farmers as could be gotten in terms of taxes, land protection, and all of that sort of thing. So I think if you look at our regulations and our things that are given to the farmers in order to keep them where they are and to support them, I think the town has done a very good job.
All right, next question begins, Mr. Ergo. Someone wanted a very specific answer, so I'll give us the specific question they asked. They'd like to see if our candidates can come up with 3 things they would do to do away with or consolidate in order to save tax dollars. And you get first crack at that, Mr. Ergo.
Well, I can tell you what my biggest priorities, I guess I would say, and I'm not sure do away with is the right thing. I need more time to collaborate with the Board of Finance and the other selectmen to see. I think there are definitely opportunities to get leaner, to get more efficient in town hall. So those are things that I would try to take a look at without getting too specific. There was a committee that was put in place that's looking at a town administrator position. Now, you'll say, well, that's adding an expense. I'm like, well, there's an expense, but it's actually being offset by savings that's already happened. And besides the fact that that position will actually help us increase our efficiencies even more. So I think that's something that will really help us in the long run. And I think businesses, that's the name of the game. We need to, getting a ton of businesses isn't necessarily going to happen overnight, and not that we want a ton of businesses, but we want businesses so we can help offset the tax burden. I think the next 2 years is going to be challenging, but if anyone is up for that challenge, I absolutely am.
Mr. Palmer.
Well, getting students from out of district will save money. The next first selectman is going to form a committee to choose our next highway director, and I think we should make it so that it's the one requirement is to be an engineer, so that we won't have to subcontract out our engineering to a separate person. And getting businesses in town is really the name of the game, and that's why since I got the first selectman nomination, I've been working with business owners trying to figure out what could facilitate business growth, and that's why there's signs in front of the truck stop and in front of Quinlan Enterprise. And that article that Ms. Kincaid talked about, saying we were #1 in economic development, states that Quinlan Enterprise is responsible for most of that development. So I think it might be good to go with whoever has the signs in front of that place if you want economic development.
Mrs. Kincaid.
Could you repeat the question, please? This has wandered a little bit.
Specifically, it was, what are 3 things you would do away with or consolidate to save tax dollars.
The committee that Mike referenced was the Government Structure Committee, which went for 6 months and looked at everything in the town departments and looked at the committees as well in terms of how we were spending money. We made some recommendations. Mike has already mentioned the addition of an administrative and finance person who would be a real leader in helping with efficiencies and managing the money. But in reality, Sean Murphy our existing first selectman, has to be tremendously commended for the amount of work he's done in the past 2 years of putting positions together, looking differently at how things were done, and we're on that road already. And one of the reasons that I raised my hand and became a petitioning candidate is I think some of the work that the Government Structure Committee did has very good ideas for how we move forward, and I think that we want to follow those. So that's best I can say.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson?
Speaking last, I feel like it's somewhat repetitive, but the administration and finance officer is a wonderful idea. I think that's someone that will be in place. So as selectmen change, every 2 years you can have new selectmen. But that's the person that's in place. When the new board comes in, a new first selectman comes in, at least we know that someone's watching the finances in town. There's already money in the budget for that, and there's talk of lowering the first selectman's compensation if we bring this person in. Secondly, I think that, I don't know if it's doing away with it, I think one thing to add would be to go to neighboring towns and see how we can share services, whether it be through the school, the town hall, the highway department. There must be services that we could share with towns like Preston and Volantown and Ledyard. Then maybe we can combine departments and combine positions and save some money that way.
Anyone want to respond to what they heard or elaborate on what they said?
I'm sorry.
So, Mrs. McCabe, 30 seconds.
Actually, as part of what Sean did, we are already sharing, for example, our IT person, who is super at what he does, and he does it for us and for Preston. So there has been some of that started already. I'm not aware of any other specific one, or you might.
No, I was going to mention.
Well, we'll give Mr. Palmer.
Yep,
and then
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
Yeah, I think that one thing is, I think it blows my mind that we're gonna have a town administrative assistant without reducing the first selectman's paycheck, because they have significantly less work to do. And, besides that, the economic development taking place, 1.5%, I don't think that's even gonna bring in enough tax revenue to justify the paycheck for that new position. So I think you're literally growing the size of government faster than we're bringing in revenue. I don't like that.
Mr. Ergo, you had your hand up.
I just was going to agree with Mr. Carlson, and that is, I think there's opportunity for us to share services, and it's not just about seeing what can we farm out. We do a lot of great things here in North Stonington. How can we bring some of that maybe to other towns and bring in added revenue using the people or the resources we have here in North Stonington? And again, I'll just say that town administrator position is a budget neutral item because of cuts that Sean levied in his term as first selectman. So the committee of a lot of smart people who didn't necessarily all agree on everything came up with a great idea there, and I won't go into that anymore.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have something else, Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, you're right, Mike. We need to, you know, we have a really big highway department. Our highway department's bigger than all the other surrounding towns. We have more equipment and more employees than most towns around. And rather than just saying that I think we should do this, I have been doing this. I've talked to Rob Simmons about leasing out some of our equipment to Stonington. I'm saying I want to be ready to do what I want to do when I get into office, not start getting ready to do it. I want to start doing it.
All right, thank you. We got time for one more question before final statements from our first selectman. And the last question, I thought this was a little different, maybe a little fun. Begins with Mr. Palmer. Everyone gets a crack at it. Name a recent or current political leader you admire and who you feel should be emulated.
Whoa.
I don't think there's very many recent political figures that should be admired or emulated. But I guess I can't lie to you guys. A lot of the things I learned in my life, I learned from Dr. Ron Paul. 12-term congressman from Texas. Look him up on Wikipedia. But another one, Rob Simmons, our former congressman. I really want to work with him. Bordering town first selectman now. He represented us. And I don't think his heart ever fully left North Stonington. So, yeah, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you I love Trump or hate Trump, because that would tick off half the room no matter what. So, it's interested to see what everyone else has to say.
Mr. Ergo, name a recent or current political leader you admire and who you feel should be emulated.
Well, as an unaffiliated candidate, I will say that I admired Bernie Sanders. I thought he was somebody who tried to stand up for what he really believed in and seemed like he always tried to do the right thing and represented, I think, a large contingent of the country who was feeling displaced maybe, or not necessarily positive, and I feel like his message was generally a pretty positive one. So he's somebody that I thought was a potentially good candidate. I guess we'll never know probably because he's pretty old. I don't think he'll be running again. I'm very impressed with what Sean Murphy's done in town in his time. I don't agree with everything he's done, but I think coming in after Nick was in office for such a long time, it was a tall order for the current first selectman to get a lot of things done and please a lot of people. I think he's done a relatively good job. So I don't agree with everything, but
Mr. Carlson?
If I had to pick one, I'd say Senator Summers. I think she's new to politics. She's already starting to be a shaker and a mover up in Hartford. I think she listened to the small towns when we told them what our needs were. I think she fought hard to get that Governor Malloy's budget changed. And I saw her to speak on a few occasions, and I like her message. And I'd like to get to know more about how she does things. I think she's a good role model.
Thank you. And last shot on this one, Mrs. Kincaid?
I'm really searching my mind to try and come up with one. I guess I would say, and this is probably because I somehow got on his mailing list, that I have been generally impressed with some of the things that I see that Joe Courtney has done in the New London area and supporting this area of the state. So that's the only person I can think, and I agree 100% about Sean Murphy.
Thank you. With that, we're going to move to our final statements, excuse me. I guess you could call them final arguments. I'm going to try to close the deal. We'll begin with Mr. Palmer. It's just for the first selectman by the rules that were agreed on before the debate. It'll be the first selectman presenting their closing statements. We'll begin with Mr. Palmer, and the candidates have up to 2 minutes to make their case. Mr. Palmer.
Well, when I first got the nomination, a lot of people said, whoa, what? Asa Palmer, isn't he 22? But now I've seen a lot of support, and a lot of that support is from people that at first might have had their doubts. And it's because they talked to me in person and they listened to what I had to say, and they found out that I am actually a very competent individual. I wouldn't be running for this if I didn't think I was ready. Now tonight was my first time ever sitting in a suit. I bought this for this. And, you know, in front of all you people that came here, and I guess this is a record turnout, someone told me, and I think it might have been because of Mike Ergo and Asa Palmer. Everybody wants to see what we have to say, but, you know, I know a couple times tonight I was drawing a blank, and it's not because I didn't know what to say, it's just because I'm a little bit nervous. I tried picturing you all naked, but it didn't. I got scared then. But anyways, if you're planning on voting for me, thank you very much. If you're not planning on voting for me, please come talk to me outside. Let me give you my number, or contact me via my Facebook page or some other mode, because I really, really want to be your first selectman. It's all I really want to do with the next 2 years of my life. Please give me the opportunity. If I don't make you happy, I won't try again. and I'm going to be here the rest of my life. You guys are stuck with me, so I don't want to embarrass my family. And if I raise taxes of too much, my dad would have my ass. So, please, vote for Asa Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Mr. Urgo, you get last word, up to 2 minutes.
So I hope actually this whole process has been in some little way inspiring to people, because it's been very difficult. I know on myself and Asa as well. But we've remained, we've actually, I think, grown a little bit friendly through this process. And hopefully that would serve as some inspiration for younger people to get involved. Because I think politics has a really dirty ring to it. And we've tried, I think, to be good gentlemen through the process. So with that positive notion being said, let me end saying this. You know, I hope you have seen my actions have shown a commitment to the community. If you look at what I've done, I think my actions speak louder than words. Party politics don't really play a part in local government. You hear that all the time. So it doesn't matter what you're a Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated candidate, it doesn't matter. But it plays a part on the ballot, unfortunately. And so if you are thinking about supporting me, I need not only your vote, but I need you to tell your friends. Because I am an unaffiliated candidate. I am not a Republican. And for the last quarter century, Republicans have been in office here in North Stonington. So the odds are stacked against me. Okay? So I just want everybody to understand that. I'm asking you for your vote. I also want to represent the town. I stepped up for this position because I love North Stonington. Yes, I'm not from North Stonington. I've been here since 2010, but I've put a lot of work into the town. I'm proud of the work that I've accomplished here, and I hope that you would consider voting for me, and certainly I'm more than happy also to answer any questions. My cell phone's out there. I'm on Facebook. I'm hanging out here after, and please vote for Mike Urgo come November 7th.
All right, with that, we can have applause for our candidates.